I wanted to tell a story about something that happened to me a few months ago that is a great example of how life speaks to you. When I first moved to where I live now many years ago, I was looking for directions to get to this particular store that was about a half-hour drive away from me. And you know how it is when you look it up on your phone, it gives you the various routes that you can take, or routes, however you want to pronounce that, depending on where you're from in the world. And I picked the one that said it was the least amount of time, as we all tend to do. So the first time that I drove to this store, I followed a particular path that was laid out for me, and then it just kind of stuck. And I took the same path every time that I went to this store, to the point where it became automatic, robotic. I didn't even think when I got in the car to go to this place. It was just autopilot. Well, a couple of months ago, one day I go to the store to pick up a few things, and about halfway into the drive, I come around a corner and I see the dreaded backed up taillight scene of a bunch of stopped cars in front of me. And at this point, you know something has gone terribly wrong. And you're not in for a normal trip at that stage. But I see up ahead that a lot of the cars are turning around. They're not even waiting. They're just straight up turning around and coming back the other way because there's no traffic coming through where they're turning around at. And after I got up to that point, I see why. Oh, the road's closed. And they have this big sign that says road closed. You can't get through it. And you just see all this construction equipment behind the sign in this area that you couldn't get around even if you tried. They didn't even have the local traffic only sign up where usually you can get through if you live around the area. They had just closed down the entire road. So everyone who got up to this point has to turn around and go another way. And I'm talking now like I took it so well. Oh, no big deal. No, of course not. In the moment, I'm furious. Oh my gosh, don't they know how important my time is? How dare they close the road that I was using? This is unacceptable. What am I going to do? This is going to take an extra 20 minutes to get there. Now, I don't have an extra 20 minutes to give up. Are they insane? This is ridiculous. and you have your moment of insanity where you lose the plot completely. You forget all logic and common sense and all lessons you've learned in your life up until this point about what it means to be alive and all the things that you have transcended along those lines. All of that is out the window and you're furious. I will not pretend that I was not. Then a funny thing happened the next time I went to that store, which was about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks later. I was sitting there thinking, I'm going to that store, but I wonder if that road is still closed. Obviously, I don't want to go that way again if that's the case. And I thought to myself, you know what, I'll look up other ways to go and see if I can find a way around there that's about the same amount of time. And I look on the program. I don't even want to give advertising to the program that it is. You all know which one. But I looked on their map system, and I found another way to go. I get in my car. Okay, this will be an adventure. I'm going a different way that I've never gone before. And it was hilarious. I'm halfway through the drive thinking to myself, this is a pretty pleasant drive. This is actually better in a lot of ways compared to the other way I used to go. There's not nearly as many stoplights or stop signs. It's kind of a smooth ride. I'm only turning a couple times. It's longer roads before the turns. This is kind of nice. I like this drive. Eventually, I get to the store and I look at the clock in my car and I think something's wrong because I got there 10 minutes faster than it normally takes me going the other way. And I sit there and then it registers, oh my gosh, this was 10 minutes faster than that other way I've been going this whole time. I've wasted 10 minutes both directions for years going this way that I used to go. What was I doing? How did I not know this? I've lived here for years and I didn't know this. And I'm sitting in the parking lot having this realization, and then it all hits me at once, like this wave of understanding hits me. Something in my head says, yeah, dummy, that's what happened in your life. We put up a roadblock for you in your life because you had become robotic. You were on autopilot. You were living your life in a way that you should not have been living it. And you were not going to stop that unless we put the roadblock there and forced you to go another way, which then forced you to reassess your path, reassess your life, reassess what you were doing with it. And likewise, I have found much better ways to interact with the actual real world through the process of the roadblock being put up in it. For those of you who don't know, haven't listened to other recordings, I'm referring to the health issue that I had almost 4 years ago now, which I've done other videos on. You can check those out. I won't bore the people who know what I'm talking about with another description of that. And frankly, I don't really want to describe it anymore either because I'm moving past it. We're getting past that now. Not quite all the way there, but we're going to start talking about it as if it is over and done with at this point. We're going to put that one in the rearview mirror, as it were. So it's just funny the way that these things appear in your life if you're paying attention. It gives you an explanation eventually, in life that is. If you're paying attention to everything that transpires in this way, eventually you see, the metaphor, there it is. That's what happened. And then it was so funny because at the same time, I was observing it in my life around me with the people I know. One person I know very well had a similar roadblock put up in their life. And it is a huge one. It's one of those things where it forces you to change. You have no other option. For me, my body collapsed to the point where I was forced to change everything that I did. I had no choice. I physically could not continue what I was doing, right? And for me, that was the job I was working and the lifestyle choices I was making. I physically could not do them anymore. I had to do something different eventually. And this person I know went through the exact same thing, and I'm watching them now go through the same thing that I went through as far as having to adjust to a new reality. Because of this thing that was put in their path that is forcing them to do that. And it's very interesting because when these things are put in our paths, the initial reaction is the same way that I reacted to the traffic jam and having to turn around and go another way. You're furious. You can't believe this happened to you. This is so unfair, right? That's the big one. This is an unfair imposition on me. Why me? And then that starts the whole waterworks of why me? This isn't fair. Come on. And that's where you start with those roadblocks that get put up in your life. You start with the why me, and it's only well after the fact that you realize the bigger picture that was involved with these things. Now, of course, there are certain really awful, quote-unquote, roadblocks that other people can put in your path. And it's debatable whether or not that was coming from a place that was trying to help you or not. And I kind of want to get into that a little bit after finishing up this story. Well, I guess I have finished it, so we can get into that now. Which kind of relates to everything that's going on in the world right now. You can just feel the anxiety in the air because of everything that's going on. You can feel everybody digging in to their trenches, choosing their sides and engaging in the verbal warfare and just ready to strike and cut people down at any given point. They are right. It's that righteous energy, right? I know what's correct here. I'm the one who has the answers. These are people who have not been sufficiently humbled by a roadblock in their life. The people who think they know everything in this way and think they have it all figured out, well, most of the time it's people who just aren't aware yet, right? That's the first base level that everyone is at, that I used to be at too, where you just think you know because that's the way we're trained to be in this place. We're all trained to think we have a valid opinion about things that we don't know anything about. We're just regurgitating things we've heard from other people. And we're trained to believe that that means our opinion is valid. Oh, well, I studied up on what other people are saying about this, and I'm taking that side. We all have our teams in that way. The team philosophy has been corrupted, and it's very toxic. And you can even find this on the internet with people, contextualizing their videos as I'm team good and they're all team evil. Anybody promoting that kind of ideology is disingenuous in the extreme. And almost invariably does not have your best interests in mind and is probably trying to mislead you in many different ways. But that's beside the point. You can just feel the anxiety permeating through everyone because of the very real and horrific things that are going on in the world that don't have an easy explanation. It's kind of difficult to use the roadblock metaphor for something like that taking place, right? How many people need to be blown up for someone else to learn a lesson? We just can't think on that scale. It's too horrific for us to think that that is serving some kind of larger beneficial purpose. And by that I mean the impulse that we all have, which isn't the why me impulse, it's more the where am I impulse that we scream out. What is this place? Why is this happening? Why is all of this evil allowed to transpire here? This doesn't make any sense. And then right away, depending on where you're coming at it from, you think, what can we do about this? Someone needs to help us. Please save us. We need to change everything so this doesn't happen again. And then you're caught in the web because there is no thing that you can do to the system that will change any of this. The system is designed to absorb your energy and prevent that from ever happening. Which is why they always give you a movement that you can get behind that absorbs your energy, gives you a chance to blow off that steam and think that you're contributing to a change, and then nothing changes at all, and they've dissipated your energy and the threat that your collective energy was to the viability of the system as a whole. One of the best examples from recent times would be Black Lives Matter. They give the black community this option. Hey, here, this is how we're changing things. Join our movement. Give us your money. Join our movement. And everybody gives them money. They make millions of dollars. And then it comes out later that they just took all the money and bought mansions with it. Same as it ever was, right? Same as it ever was for every scam that's ever been perpetrated in the name of charity. But that's what I'm talking about here. You know, they always give you these outlets, these movements. Make America great again. One of the biggest scams of all time, right? Pretending to be the place that's going to change America. Meanwhile, they're using you and your energy as a way to make things even worse. That's just the way it goes. But nevertheless, we're all sitting around watching this stuff thinking, why is this happening? How much longer can this possibly go on? How can we allow this? And that's the problem, is our perception of it. When we say, how can we allow this to transpire? Thinking of it in terms of the system as a whole. Thinking of it in terms of a governmental action that can solve everything. Well, if I vote for this different person and they get into office, they can change it. And they're 100 moves ahead of you and have already thought of all of that. So that will never work either, unfortunately. I mean, if you've never heard anything along these lines, I'm sorry to break the news to you, but that's the way it is. You simply are not promoted in the media unless you are a part of the agenda, period. That's just it, okay? I don't know what to tell you if you don't know that by now. other than just tell you, I just told you. But anyway, if you really sit and think about this, the system as we know it will never change. The only thing that can change are the individual components within the system. Meaning, take for example, a member of the military, pick whatever country you want, that is sitting in a cubicle somewhere piloting drones, who actually has the authority, if given the order, to drop a bomb on someone that it sees on its screen. It has no connection to the actual world, this person. They're just in this box pushing a button based on orders that someone else gives them that is capable of taking someone's life. And forget about all of the justifications that have been given for why this is acceptable behavior. Just think of the act itself. The only thing that can change a situation like that is the person with their hand on the button saying, hey, you know what? I'm not going to do this anymore. I don't care what order comes through to me. I'm not pressing this button anymore. This is outrageous. I'm just not doing it anymore. Now, practically speaking, all of this has been thought out in advance, and I don't know how it is in other countries, but in America, in the United States military, if you disobey an order like that, you are subjected to a potential court-martial, and you can go to jail. So it's not so simple as somebody just saying, oh, hey, well, I don't think I'm going to follow these orders anymore. I'm done doing this. There are real consequences to that decision. The same way there are real consequences for any whistleblower, a journalist, for example, who leaks something that they know could potentially get them in trouble, to the point of even getting them killed. It takes a lot of guts and bravery to do something like that, especially when it's in the beginning, like it is right now. If somebody was sitting in that chair, piloting the drone, and decided, you know what, I'm not pressing this button anymore, well, they kick you right out of the military, maybe put you in jail, maybe not, but you're out, and they just slide someone else right into that seat. I mean, there's no shortage of people who are willing to do that activity. And that really speaks to the problem on this planet, of course, but also it's just the nature of things, because so many people are under mind control and unaware. Even if their intentions are good, generally speaking, they're put in a position financially where their only choice was to join the military if they ever wanted to get any kind of education greater than high school. Well, if I want to give myself these opportunities, my only choice is to join the military. And of course, the whole class system is set up purposely to allow for this base of individuals that constantly filter in through the military. Although in America especially, we're having a harder and harder time recruiting people, because I think it's a bunch of different trends coalescing together at once. But one of the bigger ones is a lot of people are saying, I'm not doing that because I don't believe in it anymore. But still, because of the way that the artificial scarcity is set up, there is a constant stream of desperation that feeds into the military in the same way that it feeds into the prisons. Which is why all of these private industries have sprung up around prisons and the military, because they make insane amounts of money. Going back to companies like Halliburton that made outrageous profits off the Iraq War. Just incredible amounts of money. I mean, and you go back and they were double charging for things like staplers and all this stuff. $100 stapler Halliburton was charging to give to the troops, and then that gets found out, but it's too late. They already took the money and ran, and nobody does anything about it because it was a sitting vice president that was behind it. It's like, on and on it goes. And don't get me wrong here. I'm not singling out one of the RDs. It's both of them. That was just an example of one R that did it. So one person leaves the chair and there's just another one that slides right back in. At least right now. That's what happens when you're in the beginning of anything. But if you jump down towards the end, you project your consciousness towards the end result here, what do you see? Well, you see every soldier in every country on earth saying simultaneously, I'm not pressing that button anymore. Simultaneously laying their guns down on the ground. I'm not shooting this gun anymore. Why would I ever do this again? And at that point, who are they even giving orders to? There's no soldiers left. At that point, your order doesn't mean anything. But in the beginning, it's like anything else. Like I said, any whistleblower who risks their life, and it's similar to anybody who would get on YouTube and tell the truth. I mean, there's no glory in this. There's no accolades. I mean, if that's what you're after anyway, you're in the wrong business. But there's nothing to gain. The majority of people, even people listening to this recording, are listening to it for entertainment purposes. You listen to it, or if it's a video, you watch the video, and then you're right on to the next video, as if this recording is exactly the same as all the other ones you're going to listen to. And it's like that anytime you come across truth in any form. You listen to that one, and then, it's right on to the next video that might be about something entirely ridiculous and frivolous in comparison. But you get caught in that loop with technology where one thing just bleeds right into the next, and it's all entertainment. And the people that are in that mindset, I mean, you think they would ever lift a finger to help you if you were in trouble? Of course, there are probably amazing people listening to this right now who would help me or anyone else if they were in trouble, and they were certain that the person asking for the help actually needed it and deserved it. And by deserve there, I mean they're not a intentional scammer, if you know what I mean. Sure, that would be part of it, but you got to understand just the culture of the internet. The majority of people are doing this all for entertainment, for laughs. There's nothing that can be done to the system from inside the system that will change it. It's its own entity in that respect. It's going to take someone who is inside of the machine, as it were, making the very decision that I'm talking about right now, where they say, you know what, this isn't right, I'm not doing this anymore. And I don't even mean that they have to make that public. I'm sure this has actually transpired in elite, quote-unquote, circles in the past. I'm sure there's been people witnessing what they do in regards to pedophilia and human trafficking and all the rituals that surround that. I am sure there have been people who have been exposed to that who said, I am not participating in this. And they didn't even necessarily make it public, but they just were like that person sitting in the chair who just said, I'm not pressing this button anymore. And I don't even know what kind of consequences you would suffer for that. Because like I said, in America, maybe they court-martial you and you go to jail, worst case scenario. But in other countries, if you tried to defect like that, I mean, they might just take you out back and shoot you. Some of these higher up circles of people involved in these kind of operations and rituals, I mean, they might have a code like the mafia does, where it's kind of one of those things, hey, you're in, and then you don't get out. Once you're in, you're in. And you try to get out, we don't let you get out. And maybe some people that we've never even heard of might have at one point in time said, I am not doing this anymore, or I want no part of this, once they found out about it. And they might be considered a loose end that needs to be taken care of at that point, because they could potentially tell someone or expose the scheme in some way, or whatever the case is. In other words, if you want things to change, not only do you have to lead by example in the way that I'm describing here, you have to leave space for people to make these decisions. And anybody who's been alive for longer than 10 seconds in this place knows that the last thing you want to do is help someone or do something for them when they're screaming at you or arrogantly proclaiming how bad you are and how great they are, how they have everything figured out and you don't. And you could take what I just said there and apply it to 100 different scales of perception. You could go to the lowest scale, which would be two mind-controlled people, unaware of everything that's going on, truly, having an argument about politics or their favorite sports team or something just very trivial along those lines. But you can take it all the way up to somebody involved in creating the wars that they send people to die in. And you sitting there saying, they are evil, I hate them, I hope they die. I hope the worst amount of torture imaginable happens to them for what they've done. You see, that kind of attitude works against what you actually want to see transpire. Because when they see that, when they feel that, when they hear that, they have no incentive whatsoever to do anything that would ever benefit you or stop you from dying. You see? I hope that makes sense. Again, we're in the beginning of all of this. It's going to seem hopeless in the beginning. One person makes the decision I'm talking about and they expose something. They let a truth out there that's never been out there before and they suffer great consequences for it. And other people look at that and they say, why would I do that? Why would I subject myself to that when that person gave up everything for nothing? Look, no one cares about them. Yeah, some people remember them loosely every once in a while, but why would I do that? It's funny how this is kind of co-opted by movies and television. I mean, you can see the theme I'm talking about here in so many different forms of media. They always celebrate the whistleblower. They always celebrate the underdog. They always celebrate the David Goliath kind of narrative. The little guy going up against the big guy who gets a victory in whatever form that entails. And those kinds of movies and television shows are inspiring to people. People get inspired by these stories of bravery and courage and doing the right thing in spite of great threats and peer pressure to not go through with it. And similar to that is the redemption story. Everybody loves seeing someone get a second chance, redeeming themselves. And yet, for whatever reason, because of the activities that they are engaged in and that they allow to be created all around us, we don't allow the possibility of those who are in control here being redeemed, up to and including that which we would refer to as Satan itself being redeemed. We just don't allow that. As a general rule, nope, that's too much. Can't allow that to happen. But in doing so, you're preventing the very thing that you all so desperately want. An end to all of the pain, suffering, misery, death, war, blood, lack, hunger, everything that's going on this planet right now. All of that is a function of what it has created here. And the real truth that none of you want to hear is that all of us are individually making the decisions and choosing to perpetuate this thing. We are responsible for it. And that's how they get around all that karma that otherwise would attach to what they're doing, because it's true. We do it. Like I said, that guy sitting in that box, pressing that button, he's the one dropping the bomb from the drone. They might have created the technology for the drone. They might have created the bombs. They might have created the entire military industrial apparatus in every country on planet Earth, but yet, guess what? It's one of us, a human being, that plays it out. We do it. We press all the buttons. We shoot all the bullets. We operate the factory farms. There's a human being involved in every step of that process. We are the ones that are responsible for it. And so, I hope you see the insanity of being responsible for it, whether you want to admit that or not, and not taking ownership of that while you simultaneously point your finger at Satan and say, "You're the reason. I hate you. I hate you so much, Satan. I hope you die 1,000 deaths," or something crazy like that. Well, what do they say? He burns in a pit for eternity or something? I mean, pretty good punishment for what he's done, I gotta say. But if you are understanding what I'm saying here, we should be burning right along with him because we're doing everything. Whether or not we're under mind control is beside the point. I mean, it kind of makes it, legally speaking, null and void, right? Because we're not of sound mind. We're not getting informed consent here because we're mind controlled from birth, and our connection to God is inherently suppressed and intentionally cut off. So it's not a fair game, but still, I'm talking in legal terms here. The reason it's called the devil's advocate is because Satan, quote unquote, is chief counsel of planet Earth, okay? A lawyer set this thing up, and that much I know with certainty, okay? That much I know, because there are loopholes and ways around everything that's been set up to where there is no blame that finds itself back onto it, okay? It's all on us. Each of us in our own lives has to make the decision to take our hand off the trigger. I'm not pressing that button anymore. And that's in every way that you can imagine it. Referring to that literally in the sense of dropping a bomb on somebody, but also referring to it literally when I click a mouse and watch porn. Same thing. Same exact thing. Dropping a bomb on my mind. Every time you click on that guilty pleasure video on YouTube, that's some guy or girl that you know is completely full of it, but you watch them anyway. It's entertainment. Not doing anything else other than dropping a bomb on your mind, my friend. That's what it is. Same thing. Slowly killing your soul. Killing your spirit. However you want to refer to it, that which is inside of you. I do it all the time. But the roadblock that was put up in my life has significantly reduced it, at least. It's made me more aware of how I'm self-sabotaging in that way. And when you become aware of the self-sabotage, when you become aware of the role you're playing in all of this, that's where the quote-unquote righteous indignation and righteous quote-unquote anger flies right out that window again, because you have no business being righteous about anything because you are not righteous. There's nothing about your life that is righteous because you're pressing all these little buttons every day, all day, every day, pressing little buttons in the same way. All kinds of things that you should not be doing, especially once you're aware of it all. That makes it even worse. I mean, you're in an even worse spot than the people who are still under full mind control when you're partially awake and you're still doing this stuff. And trust me, I'm not trying to shame you. I do it too. It's a long, drawn-out process getting over these addictions. I'm not shaming you any more than I shame the people who are addicted to torturing children. What they're doing is far worse than anything we're doing, but if the problem is ever going to fix itself, we have to allow the space for these people to be redeemed. As hard as it is to wrap your mind around that, it's the only answer. we have to have these people voluntarily stop doing what they're doing in the same way that us, the human beings, have to voluntarily abandon war entirely. No more. At all. That's on us. And I ask you, would you allow the guy or girl who's dropping the bomb from the drone in that room, just pressing that button? They don't know any better. They think they're serving their country. They think they're a patriot. They think they're protecting their family when they do that. And regardless of whether or not that's a complete lie, that's what they think. That's their justification. Would you allow that person to be redeemed once they figured out what was going on? Of course you would. Even if they killed somebody, which is even more unspeakable than torturing somebody. Well, I mean, it's the same thing, right? But you're taking the life as opposed to letting them still live. Now, it might be worse to torture somebody and let them live as opposed to just put them out of their misery, but I don't even know why I'm getting into the semantics of that. It's terrible all around, but if you don't allow for the possibility of the worst instances of what can happen and the people behind that being redeemed, we're lost. You are lost. I am lost. That's how I feel every time that I go to that place. I know it's not the answer. Because love is the only truth. Truth is love. And I kind of just ruined everything I've been talking about by saying the word love there, because I know a huge percentage of the people listening immediately had all these images of all the romantic partners they've had in their life and all the love thoughts along those lines they've had in their life, because they've conflated all of that together. They've conflated detached, perverted sex and pornography and romantic relationships and that whole insane thing with the word love. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about truth. Pure, unfiltered, unadulterated truth that just is. It just calmly sits there and says, I am. It's just self-evident. It's truth. You know it when you hear it. You know it when you feel it. And somebody who is embodying the truth will be very obvious to you. Because when you interact with them in person, they are neither leeching energy from you or giving you energy. It is 100% completely neutral, your interaction with other people. Now, sure, evolutionarily speaking, biology dictates that when you come into contact with another person, you instantaneously and subconsciously assess them. You judge them. What are they wearing? How do they look? Facial expressions. Am I safe, in other words? You make all of those little judgments every time you meet somebody. But other than that going on in the background, like some kind of background process running on a computer that's idle for all intents and purposes and not a program that's actually running that you can see, you are completely neutral with that other person in terms of how your energy is interacting with them. You don't take anything from them, nor would you ever even want anything from them. It just is. They just are. And that's what you are. And you're not giving them anything else other than they recognize the thing that is directing you to embody what you are embodying is also inside of them. And interacting with you brings that memory to the surface. It brings that dormant ability to the surface, and it starts stirring in them, and they start feeling that. And in that way, they could confuse it to be the idea that you're giving them something, but you're not. Nothing's coming out of you into them when you are in this state. It is 100% neutral. And it is like that because you are both a part of something larger that is sustaining you both. It doesn't need you to do anything to other parts of its creation. It sustains you and them simultaneously. Your mind is insane because of where we are. It's been turned that way, and that insane part of you thinks that it needs to give something to them or take something from them in order to survive. Or you can take that a million different ways and go off in a million different directions. If you are delusional in your sense of your place in this world and you think you're some kind of God on earth, that you've awakened to become some kind of savior, you would go into a situation like that and think, I need to give this person all of my energy. It's like this spiritual idea that's promoted a lot out there where quote unquote enlightenment or becoming spiritually aware is akin to giving away all your possessions, moving out into the middle of nowhere, and just completely throwing yourself at the mercy of everyone around you. You don't do anything at all, you just know you're going to be taken care of. Now that can be good. Doing something like that as an experiment could be one of those roadblocks that I was talking about, right? It could be that thing that propels you in a different direction, that thing you had to do to learn a hard lesson about life here and what you need to do to survive and the limitations that you were placing on yourself. So that could be a good thing, but invariably you are a part of the system and it needs you to sustain yourself. So you have to allow yourself to receive in the same way that you give. This is something that Adam Pants talked about. Any of you who have listened to his recordings will remember that, hopefully very well, because it's one of the most important parts of what he relayed to everyone. The give-receive thing is crucial, to the point where I would never take something from you knowingly. I would never drain you of any energy knowingly. I would be open fully and allowing myself to receive truth, unconditional truth from both that which created us and you as an expression of it. Completely open in that moment to unconditional truth coming into my being and flowing out of my being. If there was anything exchanged at all, that's the only thing that it would be. No leeching, no taking, no emptying of all that I have. Giving to a fault. There's no need to give to a fault and then paint myself as some kind of victim when I don't receive in the same way that I give, which is what a lot of people do. There's no need to do that when you know that you're going to receive the same amount that you give. And that is the state of equilibrium and balance and neutrality that everyone is desperately searching to get to. Because guess what happens when you get to that place? A sigh of relief. I don't have to pretend to be something that I'm not anymore. I can just openly be alive, knowing that no one is going to take advantage of anybody, ever. And guess what? At that point, everyone around the world looks at each other, they look at the buttons in their hands, they throw them down on the ground, and they open their arms up for a big old hug with whoever it is. Because that's what it brings out of you in that moment. And I'm talking about something that's so far past where we are right now that most of you are going to think I'm insane, which is fine. But if you don't allow the space for this kind of thing to be possible, nothing will ever change. You have to at least open your mind to the possibility of it happening. And I know it's hard to do that with everything that's going on, but at the very least, in doing that, in allowing it to be a possibility, you are respecting the legacy of those who came before us and risked everything to give us the truth that had been hidden for so long. In whatever way you want to construe that. I mean, there's all kinds of different little pieces that have come together, especially since the internet came around, that have contributed in this way. And many people who are strangers, for lack of a better term, that nobody even knows about. What do you think was motivating them to do that? accolades, an award, money? I don't think so. Satan is a fallen angel. Satan can be redeemed just as much as anybody else can be redeemed. Sometimes I'll just be sitting around and I think to myself, hey, you know what, Satan? You're my bro, man. Come on, you're my bro. What are you doing that for? Come on, stop it. We'll forgive you. Just let it go, man. Just stop. Just let it go. Even if you're just looking at it as a fun game in your perverse way, in trying to prove God's wrong. Look, I set up all this stuff and they just do it on their own. They're out there pressing the buttons. Bunch of little sinners just pressing the buttons. I don't even have to do anything. I just sit here and watch. Proving God wrong day by day. And it's like, look, all that is way over my head. I can't even imagine the scales of perception that are higher on that level to where all of that went down and whatever is transpiring here happened and how it went down and why it's still allowed to exist. And all of that is just beyond me, beyond my pay grade. I don't know what all of that is about. And I probably never will. But what I do know, or at least what I think I know, because do I really know anything at this point? But what I think I know is that everyone, anywhere, anytime, deserves the chance to be redeemed if they genuinely intend for that and they genuinely seek it out. And I know this is a lot to wrap your mind around, especially for our tiny human brains. But what if this whole thing on planet Earth is a big old roadblock for that which we refer to as quote-unquote Satan, in the sense that it had to hit rock bottom to finally figure out that, this isn't the way that it's supposed to be. I'm on the wrong path. And it's time to go another way.